Does anyone remember this Goku?
Going now! Goodbye! Man, gosh, Dad.
You would have been killed, son.
Please have mercy.
How many people begged for their lives at your feet and you killed them anyway? Did you show me mercy when I asked you to spare my best friend Krillin? I said stop that! There'll be no more tears from now on. You will have to be tough to stop Majin Buu!
And now we unfortunately have this version.
I am called Goku, your kindness, at your serving. Sometimes I wonder if he does this on purpose.
Kakarot, you've never kissed someone?
Huh? No, of course not. Why?
You're married and have children.
Yeah, duh, but what's that have to do with kissing?
So I really do think Dragon Ball Super has assassinated Goku's character, and I think for some people that's apparent and for others maybe it's not. And I just kind of wanted to explain my kind of theory on why personally I believe Super has degraded Goku's character to a point that it's unrecognizable. I mean, even if we were to compare Dragon Ball Super Goku to Akira Toriyama's original masterpiece in Dragon Ball, I would argue that Kid Goku is more nuanced and complicated and surprisingly even more mature than Dragon Ball Super Goku is. I mean, in fairness, within the original Dragon Ball, he's learning about friendship. You know, he's a boy that grew up in the wilderness, right? So he has no social cues. He had nothing to base anything off of. But, you know, he had extra human abilities. And in the classic Spider-Man sense,
remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Goku throughout the original Dragon Ball is learning, you know, through the love of his friends of Krillin and Bulma and Yamcha and eventually Tien, and, you know, learning what's good in someone's heart versus what is evil in someone's heart, and, you know, figuring out how to protect those he loves. I mean, you take a classic example in the original of when Krillin is originally killed by one of King Piccolo's henchmen, and just the emotional turmoil that puts him under. You know, he can't think, he goes straight into battle, he has the immaturity about it, and we can see that as a viewer, that's where the tension comes in, you know? It's like, he was just finished a tournament, he was tired, you know, and there was this intrigue in watching that, right? Because he was so overcome with emotion. And I know you can say in Dragon Ball Super, Goku gets angry and is overcome with emotion and fights, but there's no tension or drawback in that, right? It's a power-up, you know, Sean Schemmel growling, and as the animator is giving him crossed eyes. And then when we come to something like Dragon Ball Z, which is my main topic of comparison between Super Goku and Dragon Ball Z Goku, is that he is constantly maturing in Z. So Goku as a character, I think we all know, he loves to fight, he loves to get stronger, he loves to train, but he doesn't fight to win, right? He never fought to win. It was always just about he wants a good battle, he wants someone hypothetically who is more stronger than him, and that's very apparent in Super, and that's all he has left. But in Dragon Ball Z, the reason Goku is enticing and intriguing as a character development arc is not because he's getting angry, it's for his reason of getting angry. It's for the conflict that he has in him, because he is good-natured and he has an issue with that versus protecting the ones he loves. So Goku gets angry in Dragon Ball not because he's fighting, he gets angry because he's put in a position he doesn't want to be. If we take the Frieza scenario, where he's on the floor, chopped in half, and Goku's like, you're done, we're moving on, I don't want to deal with this. There's an inner conflict. He doesn't want to kill him. He struggles with that. But and that's what's making him angry. That's what's, you know, giving that speech against Frieza, and, you know, the ultimate of when Frieza, and look, obviously he doesn't ultimately kill him, but he intended to. And that's all that matters. That is all that matters for the character development. That Goku overcame his want to leave him go, overcame his need not to feel like he has to kill someone. For the betterment of everyone else. He realizes that he is the only person in the position who can take this action, and if he doesn't take that action, you know, many more are going to suffer. And that really becomes his character arc from being a student to a fighter and eventually to a teacher. And seeing this maturity is incredible. You know, another one with the opening scene I used is where, you know, as a father, and, you know, we all slag on Goku for being a father, and it's a good meme, and a lot of times it makes sense. But there's that scene where Gohan wants to go down and help Tien and Piccolo when Imperfect Cell is fighting with them, and Goku has to hit him and put him down because he's going to put himself in danger. Do you know, like if we were to compare that to a Super Goku, we would just go. You know, it doesn't matter whether he can beat him or not. He doesn't think. There's not a thinking mechanic. Dragon Ball Super Goku, I find, is like a parody of Goku for much of it. And I know a lot of people look to people like Vegeta, who has this incredible character arc from being, you know, completely evil to struggling with it and becoming good. But I would argue that Goku actually has a more like finesse, fine, subtle character arc of him learning about his responsibilities, that he has to do, you know, in his mind, disgusting, heinous things he doesn't enjoy to protect the people around him that he loves and to protect the earth, and to teach the next generation going forward. And that's what makes him so interesting. It's that subtlety, it's that conflict in him that makes it quite incredible. And I think, you know, you look at Perfect Cell, when Gohan was fighting him, and, you know, he makes the mistake as well of not realizing that, hey, you know, Gohan doesn't love to fight. In his head, he realizes that he loves spending time training with him, but he never pieced it together in his own mind about what it was for his own son to be fighting. And his sacrifice in that sense is his mistake. Do you know what I mean? I think that's very interesting too, and I think that's such an interesting, subtle character moment, that when Goku is about to use instant transmission to take Cell to King Kai's planet, he is acknowledging that he's failed in that regard. Do you know what I mean? And that is his punishment too there, and that is his character maturity and arc, that I think is very subtle there too. It's very easy to say, oh, what was he doing? And that is true too, but his acknowledgement in misplacing his priorities and what he believed his son was thinking, you know, and that was his mistake he was ready to own up to and end his life for, again, for the betterment of everyone else. And I think then particularly, like obviously at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, you know, we see Goku leave Vegeta go. You know, that's starting there. We get to Frieza, where he realizes he can't leave him go, and the importance that is having. And then we get to Cell, where he realizes he has to also own for his mistakes at the cost of his life. And then finally we get to the Majin Buu saga, where he really now has become, since that Cell moment, become a teacher. He really is. And I mean, Goku, when you look at Dragon Ball Z, what makes Goku so interesting is that he's not a character that's on screen a lot. You know, you think he is when you're growing up, but in reality it's about all these other characters, you know, struggling, whether it's Gohan and Krillin and Piccolo and Vegeta and Namek for so long, or, you know, when Tien and Yamcha are fighting the Cybermen and Vegeta, you know, Goku's off-screen training, or he's incapacitated in some way. And that's also what makes his character interesting, because, you know, when we have someone who is the, you know, kind of inverted commas main character, who isn't overused like that, it makes it so much interesting, to where the fusion between all the characters and the responsibilities that they have to have. And that's clearly another big thing. Super didn't just assassinate Goku's character. They assassinated him, then put him in prime focus, and then ignored everyone else. And I think it's really strongly felt just in the writing. When you're watching Dragon Ball Super, I don't think there's one time, like even when I rewatch Dragon Ball Z, I get that feeling as a kid where I'm like, there is always some form of conflict. There is always some form of more detail and inner turmoil going on than I'm just looking to fight. In Dragon Ball Super, Goku's willing to sacrifice all the universes to start a tournament. You know, with Zeno, he's never thinking about the consequences of his action. He's not thinking about the Earth or his loved ones in the actions of fighting. He has purely been reduced to dumbed down more than he is in original Dragon Ball by the end of it. Easy. I mean, the end of the original Dragon Ball, Goku as a middle to late teen is like, you know, he's a bit of a fighting savant. Like, he's taking everything in. He's serious. He realizes the severity of it. And Dragon Ball Z then runs with that. I mean, hell, even movie Goku in the non-canon Z movies takes things pretty seriously and understands the consequences of what's happening. I think the fact that Super Goku just doesn't care about any of that, it really removes the intrigue as a viewer. And I ultimately think removing Goku's inner conflict, reducing his responsibility, not just back from a teacher, not even just back to a fighter, but back to a student, more or less. he's training under Beerus and Whis. You know, like he's gone back down to that role again, and Goku's role is interesting as a teacher. You know, that's his character development, you know. Let him pop in here and there, but, you know, for him to go Super Saiyan 3 against Majin Buu just to stall for a bit of time, knowing he could also potentially finish him there, but knowing that he's only around for a day and that he's going to have to somehow take the training wheels off, you know, Gohan, Goten and Trunks, or the future of those protecting the worlds, and really thinking about that. You know, and even the moments when he gets angry, it's not about angry in a fight. It's angry about, Trunks, you need to get the radar. Like, we need to do this. It's about creating a plan. It's about creating a future. And it's about him realizing what's important in his life and the preservation for years to come. Even something that GT didn't get overly wrong. You know, they did, obviously, with Goku turning into a kid, change a lot of that. And he did become a bit more goofy as a kid. But again, the priorities are there. You know, if Super Goku was with Pan and Pan got like blown away or something, he'd be like, I'll get you later, Pan. I gotta finish this fight. You know what I mean? It's like, it's frustrating. I think Daima, it's hard to tell, because Daima with Kid Goku, he really is Kid Goku in that. So he's very Dragon Ball-esque. And he does seem to have a sense of, you know, being more powerful than everyone else. So it doesn't create as much intrigue or intensity with it. But it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know what adult Goku is like in Daima. Maybe if we get a season 2 of Daima, hopefully that can be an opportunity to reintroduce a Goku with character development. And don't get me started on Vegeta, whose character development was just rehashed in the most corniest and cheesiest way for Super. And don't get me wrong, I understand, like, you know, age categories change this heavily. Like, I'm 33, so I grew up with Z, so you could say I have a nostalgia bias or goggles on with that. For people who grew up with Super, you know, you think it's better, potentially. So I'm open to that discussion of what you think about Goku's character arc, if Super assassinated it, and what for you was Goku's maturity in Dragon Ball Z, particularly towards the end of Z, if you saw any of it or not. It's definitely more subtle and nowhere near as obvious as Vegeta's, but I 100% really do think it was there, and I really do think we have missed Goku's soul now, going on for a decade, of what makes Goku Goku. But thank you for listening to this unscripted rant. If you enjoyed, you can check out my streams at kick.com/Steamy_streamers. And this is just for fun, so I'd love to hear your opinions down below. You don't need to take it too seriously, but if you disagree, I'd love to hear that too. It's what it's all about. It's about the conversation, guys. And until the next video, I'll catch you soon. Bye!